Easy E, how are you?
Shawnee. I'm still here anyway.
Well, I'm glad you went out for a run today before recording this podcast with our guest today, but you could have had a feckin' shower before we started recording. This is the first time side by side with you in months doing this podcast, and this is the only time you decide not to have a shower before.
It's all about embracing the ambiance, Sean.
Well, there's a lot of ambiance going in the room. I can barely pronounce that word, ambiance, in the room right now, but I tell you what.
Best of luck for the next hour. It doesn't bother me.
Well, you know what? We're going to learn a lot in this podcast in terms of when you come back from a run, you shouldn't have just sat down and went straight into this podcast. You should have done a couple of things first.
I know. I should have got up earlier instead of staying in bed, but there's a lot of lessons learned. But the next episode is fantastic. There is a lot of lessons that even myself and yourself have to be reminded of every now and again, even though we've been around a couple of different courses this time at this amount, like we still need to be told, do the basics, get the stretches, have a shower. But this is a great episode. This week we've Ronan on. Another Corkonian is coming on to remind us of the importance, and there's so many snippets for anyone who's looking to mind themselves as they go through their marathon training or to recover from the marathon training. And anyone who could be in a spot of bother, there's definitely a lot to get out of this, and Ronan's details will be attached as well. What a great guy. What a good episode. And without further ado, we'll kick into it.
And just before we do, I'm glad you're very polite with the first question in this podcast. With that said, let's go. So, Eric, this week on the Any Given Run Day podcast, I've had issues the last couple of weeks with not issues with physios, but issues with my body going to physios and stuff like that.
That's not what you said before we start recording.
Well, that's what I'm saying now. So when I have these issues like, you're pulling back in a run, you're not running, and I like to relate to someone who goes through different runs and stuff with me. So we've someone in the podcast who has competed in Cork this year doing the half marathon, which you brought up to him nicely before the podcast started, saying he did a full year before, why he did a half. We'll get into that. But I was also doing the Eco Trail this year, and I also did the Eco Trail myself. And as well as that, he's a neuromuscular therapist. He's an orthopedic sports massage. He does personal training, massage therapy on the side. Ronan Barrett, welcome to this week's episode of the Any Given Run Day podcast. How are you keeping?
Very good, lads. Very good. Thanks for having me. Pleasure.
Why are you soft?
Soft.
Ronan, did the sunshine get to you? You let me suffer the full marathon this year and you did the half.
Probably something to do with the sunshine, right, to be fair, yeah. Well, I suppose what I was looking to do, last year I did the full, and it was one of those days where everyone just went against me. I was just a terrible day at the office, terrible sleep the night before, stomach wasn't good on the day, lashing rain. Actually started off that morning, I moved house now, but I used to live about 40 minutes away from Cork City. So I asked my father to pick me up and drop me up, So started early. I said, pick me up about 7:10. I said the half is starting, or the full start is starting at 7:30. I'd be there for about 7:45, perfect, And my dad, obviously being my dad, rocked up about 7:45, and I'm barely out of bed, rushing around. And that morning, if he didn't do it last year, the weather was absolutely horrendous. So I was up there for about 25 past 7 in lashing rain, freezing cold. And then eventually frozen by the time we get to go. Obviously, my mindset was completely wrong. Then did it and just had a terrible day at the office. So I said, this year, my focus is actually doing something respectable, kind of half distance wide. So that's why pretty much I went for the half this year.
Look, there's lots of excuses added in there.
Loads.
But not to set you up bad, Ronan, you have a phenomenal wealth of experience as Sean has introduced you there, and it's nice to get someone who's gone through something similar. And as Sean said, like, we go to people and they're like, oh, what do you do? Well, I'm running the Eco Trail and I'm doing the marathon and I'm doing this and I'm doing that and an Ironman, and they're not into that kind of gig sometimes. So it's nice to have someone on that we can relate to, and also who has gone through a lot of the studies that's obviously benefiting your training. So we are delighted to have you on, because a lot of people right now are training for Dublin City Marathon and the Eco Trail, as you mentioned. First of all, how is your training going for the Eco Trail?
Really good, yeah, really enjoying it. This is my first year doing any kind of trail running properly, and been really kind of really enjoyable, to be perfectly honest. I said obviously I did the half early in the year in June and all that, so the first half of the year is kind of geared up to doing that, and obviously the second half, or the next kind of last few months, has been geared up to doing the Eco Trail. So really enjoying it. So the kind of big thing I kind of noticed is obviously there's a lot of elevation in the runs and that, but really suppose getting out in nature, really enjoying that. Like I've found there a few times, just been out in the bag in her back for 2-3 hours at a time, away from the world, and it's been phenomenal, to be honest with you. You kind of get into that like lovely state of flow and all that out there. It's brilliant.
It's really good. I seen a good meme actually the other day, and it was like marathon runner training, and it's all about pace and heart rate and
Yeah.
eco trail runner or a
Trail runner,
trail runner. It's just stopping for a photo by the lake,
Literally,
chasing this.
yeah.
6 hours later, coming home all happy,
Dropping back, yeah. I was interested. I had a conversation with one of the lads recently about that because he's done a bit of trail running and stuff, and just saying how like obviously they're doing a half or a full, and most people have a time in mind, so they're kind of every now and again checking the watch, making sure they're on time, on pace, and next to their heart rate and all that. But when they're out on the trails, it's kind of irrelevant, unless they're going to kind of win it. For the most part, it's kind of irrelevant. You're like, there's going to be certain parts. I'm going to have to walk this. I'm going to have to hike it. I'm not going to be able to run this. I'm going to kill myself. And then you're just,
yeah, it's not about pace going up those hills. It's literally just getting up those hills.
Getting up those hills, yeah.
Even bars and everything. You're not worried about gels or messing up your stomach. It's like, here,
have a
food there.
ham and cheese sandwich.
With peanut butter and jam or whatever. Perfect.
I did it last year. I need a couple of stops and stuff now. I'm setting them up big time this year. The spread they had of anything you want for food along the different stops was brilliant. I was there for a good 10, 15 minutes. had to keep running. I was like, I'm enjoying this, join the views in the middle of the Sugarloaf. And I was like, oh, I better go again. And off you go. It is deadly setup.
I'm like a full platter when I get up there. So happy days.
You'll be rolling down the hills afterwards.
Yeah, literally.
You'll love it, but it's straight incline from the get-go. You go across the seafront and then straight on up right ahead. So it's one of the weirdest starts to a race because you get a nice good flat and you're like, okay, we're getting a good run here, 5 minute kilometer pace, whatever it is. And then you get to the end of the seafront, it's like, oh, everyone's stopped running. It's gotten quiet. Everyone's just marching up this real steep hill up top of Ray Cliffhead. And then it's beautiful views up there. Like, it depends what time you're doing that, what distance you're doing. The sun's literally just rising up over the sea, and then you're off again, a little bit of a run, a bit more hills from there. You're gonna absolutely love it.
I am. I'm looking forward to it. To be fair, and as I said, it's something different. So the channel's up in a different way this year, so it'll be fun. It'll be enjoyable, definitely.
And in a different thing, are you going to find it hard to go back to road running?
I was kind of thinking about it kind of recently, and I suppose I have a mini kind of goal in mind after the eco trail is just to do 50k just locally, just kind of before Christmas, whatever. Because the eco trail is the end of September, 3rd of September. So my thing is, I might just do a 50k, just nice handy pace, just kind of nice low heart rate and all that. Maybe like the end of November or something like that. And next year, I'm kind of planning on doing a few races, road racing, but I'm kind of thinking along the lines with a little bit more ultra kind of stuff, a bit more kind of trail work, Like I'm not going to dive into 100 miler or 200 miler. Like, I have to take a while to build up into that. I'm kind of thinking like looking at maybe doing something, along the lines with 60 or an 80k maybe towards the end of next year and build that way, We'll see.
How long are you into running? How long have you doing marathons and stuff?
I've been running, so like I kind of grew up like with a J background myself. So I kind of grew up, played J pretty much all my life. Went to Australia when I was 21. Didn't do much running or training over there. I was pretty much drinking for 2 years.
Strong elbows and biceps, yeah.
Pretty much, yeah, flat out and all that. So kind of came back, and like I suppose I kind of got into personal training over 10 years actually, yeah. So I came back end of 2010 to 2011, basically recession and all that kind of stuff. So doing a bit of training back then, a bit of and that, and did a few 10 milers and kind of 1 or 2 halves around that time as well. But then I generally got big into kind of weightlifting in my kind of, I suppose, early to mid 20s, So naturally I'd have been very kind of thin and lean, and I suppose like I kind of played on my self-esteem, my confidence and all that, being that age and over that, being self-aware and self-conscious about yourself. So I kind of got into lifting weights, which I really enjoyed. It was great, and build strength and build muscle and all that. And I suppose really, I kind of got to a stage where I suppose most people, like when you get into the gym, yourself, it's good to having a goal, and like an aesthetic goal is fine and everything. But I got to that stage where it's kind of going, I was about 100 kilos, and I was big and I was strong, but I couldn't run 5k for you. Like I'd die if I had to run 5k. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then obviously got back into a bit of running. Probably about 2016, really. Oh no, 2017. Sorry. Kind of got back into a bit of running. Did a half Ironman that year, and kind of took off from there. Really, I suppose. Yeah.
Yeah, we've very much been down that road at that similar ages. Everyone wanted to have big muscles and be an animal. And then cardio was always the last. I'd rather do an extra rep than get on that treadmill or do a run. Wouldn't even cross the road.
I was pretty much the same. To be honest, I worked as a personal trainer. I worked on cruise ships for a few years in America, and I came home after working on that, and I was huge. I said I was about 100 kilos. And as I said, like if you ask me to run a K or do a lap of a field, forget about it. So kind of a few of the lads who I know doing Ironman, and they did a half in Dublin that year, so I did it with them. So that kind of got me back into that kind of style of training and everything. Yeah.
And when you look back at that, so obviously I've been through a similar process of being the big guy. Now, still a big guy, but I can actually move now. But
Yeah, similar.
the do you remember what it took? Because a lot of people are starting their journeys, and a lot of people are like, how, like that conversation, I don't know, do you get with clients that are coming into you and they look at you and go, how do you do a marathon? How did you do that? You know, they're just in disbelief at how you do it. Can you remember like what it took for the first lap of that pitch?
Yeah, definitely. And I was looking to remember when I came home, it was like 2016 Christmas time that time, and obviously it's Christmas time, so I drank the shit out of it and all that. As you do.
You're dead right.
But I remember kind of coming January, and the lads signed up for it was a half. It was in Dublin at the time. They did the half. They were signed up for the half, and the Ironman that is. I remember I went out for my first run, and it was a freezing cold day in January, and I actually moved home with my father's at the time, and he kind of lived in a housing estate, and basically it was a lap kind of in around the village and back around. It was about roughly 5K. I remember the first time I did it, I went out and I stopped twice on the run. And I would never have stopped ever in my life doing runs, you know. And I was just at that stage where I had no base fitness level, cardio wise, built up inside me. You know, no stamina, nothing at all, built up all the strength in the world, but couldn't move. And I was kind of like, I remember going back home having a shower and kind of sitting down thinking to myself, Jesus, hang on a second, like I kind of need to rethink where I'm at here with my training and kind of where I'm actually going to. I suppose like I did it the wrong way at the time. And something I kind of like I put on clients now. It's like I did it the kind of wrong way. I pushed myself very hard at the time to really kind of go for it. Like, you know, I got like I was kind of doing, you know, within a few weeks I was doing, you know, 10, 12K, building up to 15Ks, all this kind of thing. We had to get a very base level of stamina built up. So I was kind of pushing myself way too much. But I learned a lot. I learned a lesson at that time. It's basically like, I suppose, less is more. You know, like you have to kind of start somewhere, but there's no point trying to run yourself into the ground and you're taking such a long time to recover that by the next run, you're still wiped. And you're trying to run 2 times a week. You're running a Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday, whatever it is. And they're there Saturday morning, I'm absolutely exhausted here, you know? So, like, my thing is to clients is if they're looking at doing that, getting into it, less is more initially. Build up slowly, you know?
It is one thing that people find it hard to believe, and we say run slow to go faster long term. You know, if you're doing training, but we made a mistake. In 2017 was our first marathon. I came out of the cadet school, Defence Forces Training Centre, Mongo strong and Mongo fit, max effort for everything, and I was like, a marathon? No bother, I could do a marathon. Fell like just diet. It was the worst day of my life. Me and him nearly bashed each other. Because we were in that. So Sean went for the strength training, strong conditioning with little cardio. I went with I just have the mental power to keep going, which did, but wasn't ready. Wasn't ready for that. As we said, that slow build, that stamina for a long distance race, it is a different animal.
Big time, yeah, no, absolutely, completely. Like, and as I touched on there, like, you know, run slow to run faster and all that. Like, you know, I'm sure if you read it, the Master Sturl 80/20 book, and pretty much just finished that there recently. It's a fantastic read about that kind of thing. That, like, you know, the slower you're running, the more you'll be able to recover from that run. So you're not absolutely wiped out every run, you know. And it's just about, I suppose, like as I said, like getting their time on your feet, getting their time out there running, rather than focusing on trying to absolutely have a max effort every time. It's kind of hard to have that flip of a mindset from doing strength training, where you are pretty much, you know, going for it, like you're benching or squatting or deadlifting, whatever, you're maxing out. It's kind of hard to flip that mindset to go, Jesus, completely switch this back now and go out there for whatever, 40-minute run, 50-minute run, whatever it is, but scale things back. But it takes you a while to realize, geez, I'm actually recovering from this. I'm able to do more, you know?
It's a completely different energy system, though. Those two, you're dead right.
Oh, completely, yeah.
Did that penny drop after the half Ironman or after the full marathon in Cork, or when did the realization kick in? Actually, I need to slow down these runs, or were you getting injured?
A bit of both, yeah, a bit of both. Really, I suppose I kind of got injured once or twice doing the training for the Ironman at the time. Remember, like, I got a calf injury about 10 days out with a tear in my calf, which is obviously far from ideal. But during the training, there was obviously niggles and stuff like that. But it's kind of one of those things. I was at a stupid age still. I was at a good age still, but probably a stupid age. I was kind of like 28, 29. You still have that kind of, like, I suppose, young kind of drive on, put the head down and keep going mentality about you.
Yeah.
But like I'm kind of hitting my mid-30s now, and they're kind of going, geez, hang on a second. If I keep doing this, I won't be able to go to bed tomorrow morning. So I suppose probably after the half Ironman, that really kind of hit me that like I'm probably pushing, because every run, even if it was an easy run, I would still push myself too much. I knew I would just push myself too much at the time, But then, obviously, that's where you're looking back at the injuries and all that, saying, hang on a second, Jesus, no wonder I was picking up injuries and niggles. And I was trying to maintain the really strong strength work on top of it, which is just, you just couldn't do it,
Yeah, it's one thing I've noticed, particularly with the Ironman training. Well, like I'm looking at people doing the half Ironman, I don't even know if I'd be able to do a half. Why did I sign up to the full? You're having these mental fights with it. But one thing I've very much learned is when I see my training plan from the coach from week 1 into week 2, so it comes in 2 weeks, I'm looking at it going, oh my God, that is some volume. But the power that I'm putting out, or the pace I'm putting out, or the effort that I'm putting in is such that I can train tomorrow. Exactly. I can train tomorrow. And I think what people need to realize when they're getting into this kind of stuff, or they want to do a marathon, if you feel a niggle coming on, just walk. Just stop.
100%.
Because a good stretch, a good foam roll, and we might kick into a little bit more of this and what people can do to prep themselves. They're then into a position where they can train tomorrow. So, okay, you didn't get your hour done because you started to feel a niggle after 25 minutes. But then you go out and get your 25 minutes tomorrow, or forget about it and go out and do what you had to do, your intervals the next day with a fresher body. And that's that whole listen to the body thing we're talking about. But this is what it means in reality, is the ability to train the next day and not get injured and to maintain injury free.
Yeah, absolutely. And I suppose they're definitely touch on something there, about obviously listening to your body, which was a big kind of thing that I'll always get across to my clients, personal training clients, and obviously in the neuromuscular therapy world, to listen to your body. If I used to give a client, came into me for a treatment for a niggle, whatever is going on, a calf issue, whatever it is, and I give them certain movements, certain stretches, etc. to do, and I'll always say to them, I say, like, if that is aggravating things, making things worse, let me know straight away, and we will change tack straight away. Mm-hmm. Because, I suppose, it comes to everything. It's not a one size fits all kind of thing in life in general with training and neuromuscular therapy. So something is making things worse, and because someone said, "Oh no, this is your plan to do it," it's going to come down to training plan, or obviously, it's a treatments and that. If it's making things worse or aggravating things worse, stay away from it. Go back to your coach, go back to whatever, listen to your body, and then kind of take it on from there. Should we say, like, we might need to change tack to do whatever different,
You said that phrase a few times. I'm sure someone else listening is thinking this. What is neuromuscular therapy?
So basically, neuromuscular therapy, it's a form of manual therapy, okay? So it's a specialized form of manual therapy. And what it does, it focuses on people with chronic pain, people with acute pain, so people with, muscular injuries, people who might have nerve issues, people who may just be have nerve entrapment, have referred pain, different kind of movement difficulties, so like things like coordination, balance, those type of things can all be kind of tuned into this. So what neuromuscular therapy does, it focuses on different areas of the body. So the easy way to put it is, what I will always do with a client when they come into me, we'll have a look, we'll have a chat. Okay, so you're coming in, you've got calf issues at you, hip flexors, whatever the case is, right?
Let's use this crock of shit.
There we go, perfect. Yeah, let's go for it. Yeah,
right, Sean, you've walked in.
I walked in.
What's going on?
What's right with you?
Nothing's right. There's a lot wrong. We'll go one specific issue. So here's what happened to me. I'll give you the full spiel because
go for it.
So I was doing an event in April. The week before, I was going for a 3-rep max deadlift, and I did my back in. So and I've done this plenty of times in the past. I'm like, this needs a couple of days, didn't knees. But I was able to run and stuff on it afterwards, and then I did a long run. I did a backyard ultra in May, and soon after the backyard ultra, I don't think it's because of backyard ultra, I was getting that pain kind of dissipating towards the back of the leg as if it was sciatica. But after a while, like, this feels different sciatica. So I went to a couple different places, acupuncture, all the rest. I just wasn't healing it.
Yeah.
And I was told tight hamstrings. Now, I never experienced this pain before with tight hamstrings. Like, I literally could not. I'd walk for a small bit and that pain would kick in. And sure, he had to lie down on the ground, knee across, that kind of stretch, that would leave a couple minutes. Again. Long story short, after around 6 to 8 weeks and doing stretching and him telling me to do yoga videos and all the rest, it literally went.
Mm-hmm. just
I
like
don't
that.
even know how to phrase it. Man, I was at a wedding. I can't even have told a story in the podcast, but I was at a wedding on a Sunday, and before the ceremony, I was like, "Here, Neve, I need to sit down. I'm in a bad way."
Bits like, yeah.
What at the wedding? Few drinks that night. You know yourself, Bailey's coffees along with free flowing wine.
That started all out. Yeah, perfect.
I'm on the dance floor dancing away. What hamstring injury? I couldn't move the next day because the head was bad. The day later, I was like walking around work, and I'm like, my hamstring pain is gone, gone. And I haven't had it back since. And I couldn't, it was starting to ease a small bit the week before, but the week before that, it was chronic for 6-8 weeks. Like we did a Ray and Kerry, it was grand cycling, but as soon as I got off the bike,
any bit of a walk, it's like, yeah.
Have you had that issue before?
I personally haven't had that issue with nerve pain, but I've a client with similar kind of issues to that, I suppose. So like what I was saying, during that period of time, were you able to strength train, or was it just purely literally couldn't load it one bit?
My mobility was actually okay, so I could strength train. I was doing.
Was it more along the lines of isolation work? Was it kind of compound movements? You know, like RDLs.
I was doing a small bit of RDLs, but I pulled back on that because I was afraid I was making it worse. So I could physically do the RDL without pain. But then I'd walk to pick up the weight and I'd have pain.
yeah.
So I'd be doing
right there,
so we do body weight RDLs, glute bridges, single leg glute bridges, getting those stupid sliders out and trying to do those, the slide, the glute bridge position your heels in.
Yeah.
Eccentrics, that kind of thing.
Yeah, perfect.
So I was doing them, and then got to the stage where nothing was healing. So I was like, and I hate even recommend this. I kind of dead stopped on everything except upper body work, and then just a small bit of I wouldn't call it strength training. I call it more rehab because the weights and stuff I was using, it was body weight glute bridges, single leg glute bridges, back extension, that kind of thing. But it wasn't doing. No, I didn't feel like I was doing much. So I don't know if it was just a coincidence that the week I started doing yoga, and I'm not a yogi, but the week of doing that, and then it was a little bit easier, and then doing a week of yoga and other stuff again, and all of a sudden I'm no pain in the hamstrings. The only pain is DOMs up from running because I'm back to square running.
Yeah, it's all right.
It was around this time where Eric got onto yourself. He saw your Instagram page and the cool stuff you're doing. He's like, here, I've got a gobshite. Cannot walk, but I'm doing a running podcast.
No, brilliant. I suppose a few things there you touched on. I suppose kind of something that I mentioned earlier. I suppose saying less is more, and you were saying that you wouldn't recommend to other clients, whatever, to not do so you're doing upper body, whatever, doing bench and pull ups, whatever you're doing, and a little bit of work to isolate maybe the hamstrings, a little bit of work. You might have been doing a small bit of work for your quads, maybe leg extensions, whatever you're doing at the time. But I suppose at that time, that's probably what your body needed. Your body, your muscles, your nervous system, everything in your entire system probably needed that bit of a kind of deload, shall we say, in the body. So probably actually needed a bit of time just to kind of rest and recover completely. A little bit of isolation work, as I said, we're going to work on mobility, work on this kind of isolating the muscle, building up a bit of kind of isometric strength maybe in that muscle or tendon, whatever the case is, obviously in that area, which is perfectly fine. But loading that kind of issue probably wasn't the best thing at the time. As you said, loading the RDL or doing the RDL, probably felt okay doing it. I said the second you put the dumbbell down, you walked over to grab the dumbbells or barbell, whatever you're grabbing, like, geez, hang on a second, that didn't feel right. And it kind of flips back to what we said earlier about listen to your body. You're saying doing the movement was fine, but after doing the movement, it wasn't fine. You're kind of saying, hang on a second, this obviously isn't right. This isn't doing what it should be doing for me here. This isn't having a positive outcome on what I'm actually trying to achieve here,
Yeah.
And it's I mentioned earlier, it's something I always get a client to do is if I'll get them to do, certain movements, certain stretches, certain whatever the case is, right? And I said, listen to your body, but I'll always kind of give them a 24-hour window and said, how does your body react in that 24 hours? On a pain scale, and pain is kind of one of these things that we can touch in a minute. It's pretty much immeasurable. You know what I mean? If I did that to you and you said out 10 out of 10 pain scale, it's 10 out of 10. There's not, I can't prove there's not. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So if you were to say to yourself, I did that movement, and that, I was, I was 8 or 9 out of 10. I was limping around. I wasn't good. Obviously, that's not good for you. You know what I mean? There's no point saying, geez, we'll do that again now in 2 days' time, and let's go for it. Kind of going, that's fairly high. And the other scale of things, if you step away from that, saying, do you know what? It was a little bit tender. It's maybe 2 or 3 or 10. Wasn't 100%. I'm not in bits after. You're kind of saying, right, we might give that another go in a few minutes, and then, or in a few days, sorry, and then we'll see how it reacts to it then and there. because it might be just a case of, obviously, if you haven't loaded tissue for a few weeks, there's going to be a bit of DOMS and all that kind of lovely stuff coming in. That might be incorporated in that. But if it's aggravating, obviously, like I suppose you have to know the difference between working a muscle and aggravating a muscle or an injury, you know? So I suppose it's a little bit of a fine line there at times. It can be very obvious or it can be very subtle, you know?
Some pain can be good, but if it's somewhat extreme, then it's like...
Exactly. Like, you know, as I said, like some pain can be okay. You know, like if you're returning from an injury, depending what injury it is, typically speaking, there's going to be a little bit of pain there, a little bit of discomfort in the body, in the muscle, in the tissue, in the joint, whatever the issue is going on. There's going to be a little bit there initially because you're returning to play or returning to training. So that's going to be there naturally on top of the injury that you're obviously trying to rehab from. But we don't want it to be that state where it's like it's aggravating, it's making things worse, you know? So and it is a case of communicating obviously with your physio, with your client, with whoever it is, making sure that you're communicating with yourself, obviously, number one, making sure you're listening to your body. That like if it's making things worse, it's not making things better. You know, it's pretty straightforward, but that's pretty much the way it is, you know. If it's really making things worse, then there's probably no good coming from that, you know.
I suppose at this time of year, and for yourself, it probably would have been, obviously, when you do Cork Marathon, that's the June bank holiday. So probably April, May, which is around this time now for people, this neck of the woods doing Dublin Marathon, or those listening doing Dublin Marathon. People may be struggling a little bit with muscle injuries or Achilles, or is there anything in particular you're seeing? And if so, what are you recommending people are coming into going, hey, I've got a little bit of niggles here. I really want to continue my running, but I'm afraid if I continue my running, I'll make this worse. Is there any type of injuries or when someone comes in with a running injury, do you think this is going to be this or more likely this?
I suppose it's an interesting one. So if you're looking at an acute injury, so someone comes into you and they've torn their calf muscle, their Achilles has just been at them the last few weeks, okay? What I will do in that stage, what I'll do is what I call like a local approach, more or less. So I would kind of focus on that specific area. But focus on that, that joint, the ankle joint, the Achilles, all that kind of stuff, and kind of say, okay, what's going on in and around that area? Obviously, talking about their training load, etc. That. If it's more of a kind of chronic injury, we'd focus more globally, so we kind of focus on the whole body a bit more. So, okay. So coming back to the point with what you asked me initially, I suppose what I would have seen, obviously, at that time leading up to the Cork Marathon, and kind of throughout the summer, I'm involved with a couple of J clubs as well. And I suppose, obviously, the weather hasn't been great here, obviously, same as the rest of the country. But a lot of lads recently seem to be struggling with a lot of Achilles issues. There's a lot of kind of tight issues around their Achilles, or calf muscles, and everything like that. So I suppose what I would always kind of look at, I suppose, is that muscles will react to the position that they're in. Okay. So what I mean by that is your calf muscle, okay? Let's make it very, very simple. So your calf muscle, it attaches the back of your knee, comes down and attaches your ankle, pretty straightforward, right? So if one of those joints, you're very restricted in the movement pattern in one of those joints, okay? So knee more or less can do flexion extension, sorry. You do a little bit of internal, external rotation, very, very, very limited, okay? With your foot, you're looking at plantar flexion, dorsiflexion, inversion, eversion, circumduction, okay? But if you're restricted in certain movements, more of the ankle than the knee, because the knee tends to be okay, generally speaking, in that regard. But what I would look at doing is looking at, I suppose, the mobility of the ankle joint itself and saying, okay, how stiff and tight is that ankle joint? Are you doing much work to actually mobilize your ankle joint? Your ankle joint, I'm a person with a history of ankle issues, just all this, since I was very young, never kind of got rehab properly when I was young, it's still haunting me to this day. But anyway, I suppose I'm one of those people that I will constantly look at improving my ankle mobility, which is never going to be perfect. It's just not there. I've done ligaments in numerous times. It's never going to be there. But if I didn't look at mobilizing my ankle joint, okay, the tissues that are connected to my ankle joint, you can stretch them as much as you want within reason. But if you're not mobilizing the actual joint, you're actually not going to be doing an awful lot to allow the tissues to move in length. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So if my ankle joint, if I can't plantar flex, I can't dorsiflex, whatever the case is, my muscles, my tissues, they're going to be stuck in either like a shortened position or a lengthened position, depending on what position it's in. That's either going to be causing an issue one way or the other. So what you look at doing is mobilizing the ankle joint as best you can, okay? Then adding length to the tissue after that.
And how, is this a case of just, sitting there watching Netflix, moving the ankle around, or is this getting calf raises, using bands, foam rollers? How would you go about mobilizing the ankles?
So what I would do is, the first thing I do any kind of acute injury, what I would say first off is if it's in a case of, say, your Achilles is at you and you're in a bad way, you're limping and stuff like that at the time, what I would do is kind of non-weight bearing exercises. They're basically elevating your foot up on a couch or whatever that, or a chair, whatever it is, and you're literally just doing movements with no weight, no restriction. Just literally gravity's doing the work for you. You know, as a plantar flexion, dorsal flexion, inversion, eversion, mobilizing the ankles and like that. Then you can start adding loaded movements to that. So you can start kind of doing, like, you know, you might know like the 5-inch wall test with regards to the ankle. So basically what that is you're going to move 5 inches of roughly about the size of your hand, give or take. Okay, you don't have to be specific with this. You're going to do basically put your hand on the floor, up against the wall, and that's about 5 inches. You're going to put your foot on the floor. Okay, you're going to keep your toes down, keep your heels on the floor. And what you're going to do is kind of bring your knee as far forward as you physically can, over like your middle to big toe, so not falling off to the side, whilst keeping your heel's going to want to lift up more than your toes, not just while keeping your heel and your foot flat on the ground. I'm going to gauge your mobility at that stage, okay? Mm-hmm. And then obviously you can compare and contrast. So if you did your left ankle or your left Achilles is very, very tight, you might be getting an inch or two, whatever it is. Your right side might be, you know, a few inches further, 3 or 4. So then you can kind of work on easing into that. Now, what I would say initially when you're doing that, I wouldn't be doing a static hold in that. So I'm not being like very, very aggressive doing that hold. So I'm not like gritting my teeth, you know, everything's kind of tense up my body and trying to force my body into a position it doesn't want to be in.
Yep.
What I'm going to do is gentle rock back and forward, gentle rock back and forward. You're going to start to feel all the little tendons, all the ligaments down the kind of the front of your foot and the back of your heel, obviously, they start to open up a bit more. Well, what I would say to you initially when people are doing it is do it controlled. Do it, don't force the movement. Like, do it so they're in control the entire time. And then what you could look at doing is after you do that, you know, can do that, I said, for a couple of days. All right. Then you can look at doing maybe a little bit more of a static hold. Just get into that position, holding it for 20 to 30 seconds. Yet again, not forcing it, so you don't want your nervous system to be jacked up and you're trying to push into something that your body doesn't want to go to. You're trying to just gently get into it. Then you're looking to load the tissues after that. So once you're kind of feeling comfortable, adding a little bit of mobility into the joint, whatever it is, then you can add a bit of strength, a bit of length into the tissue. If it's something that I always going to say to a client, what you're looking to do with a tissue, you're more or less looking to lengthen. If it's a constriction issue, if it's a tightening of a muscle, looking to lengthen, then strengthen. Okay, so you're looking to add length to the tissues and then add strength to it afterwards. Now, yet again, it depends, you know, how severe an injury is for that particular person. You know, it might be a case, that could recover within 2 or 3 days. It might be a case of it could be got to the stage where it could be a week or two, whatever the case is, you know. Yeah, so that's the way I would look at that specific joint, you know.
And to add value to that, there's one thing I've noticed from the Ironman training is the swimming, how much that has helped my ankles, my calves, my knees. Touch wood, I haven't had any major tightness because I'm doing non-weight bearing exercises in the pool. I'm not kicking a lot, but I'm flexing my feet in the opposite direction, almost to the point where I'm getting a cramp in the arch of the feet.
Yeah, totally.
So to what you're saying as to what people are doing, it is about that gentle, not manipulation, but encouragement or persuasion of the body to just increase that flexibility in the joints, relax the joints, but it doesn't have to be loaded. And then, of course, for the likes of me, then there has to be strengthening exercises.
Yeah, of course. Exactly.
Which gets into our type of prehab exercises. And Ronan, to not put you out of business, but how do me as a new marathon runner, and we've talked about activation, we've talked about strengthening and lengthening, we're taking on a marathon, we're halfway through, touch wood, we're injury free. Right. How do we prepare to go for our long run or our intervals? What are some key exercises you would recommend? And this is why I say put you out of business, to avoid going to the likes of you, because obviously we got a great description of what happens if we, worst case scenario, are in trouble. What do we do before and after them runs to make sure we're staying on track?
I suppose before it, of course, it's all specific, of course. But generally speaking, before obviously your long run particularly, or any kind of interval run where it's going to be kind of high intensity, or you're going to be out there for a long period of time, whatever it is, looking obviously at your dynamic movements, your dynamic stretching. So you're talking about things like adductor rock backs. You're on one foot out to the side, kind of hands in front, just easing back onto the heels, rocking back and forward on one side, back and forward the other side. Open it, 1990 switches, opening internal, external rotation of the hips. Yet again, if ankles are an issue for you, and like something that's very, very common, obviously for runners are ankles and Achilles calf issues, because obviously it's the closest point of contact to the floor. I'd be looking at doing just gentle rock backs with my ankles, 10, 12 each side, just to mobilize the joint, as I said, before running. As well as that, what I look at doing is most definitely a lot of people, I suppose, miss this part when they're doing a lot of running. They kind of forget about their upper body. So they forget completely what their upper body is doing during a run. And you'll see them coming in from a run and they're in this position and their shoulders they're hunched forward and this kind of locked in position, So what I would look at doing is doing a kind of bit of thoracic rotation. So like basically on your knees and back on your heels, one arm in front, arm to the side, opening up like so.
And it's just kind of that window wiper, like you're a DJ. Like
exactly.
You're a DJ, just
literally as I mentioned earlier, it's not a case of like trying to grit your teeth and grind it out. You're just trying to open up that thoracic spine, getting that movement in there, because obviously if you're running, and I suppose it comes to obviously getting oxygen and that into your body. If you're running and your shoulders are hunched forward and we're kind of in this flex position quite a lot, we're going to struggle to get oxygen for obvious reasons. As well as that, obviously, there's going to be stiffness and tightness in other areas of your body. So if you can kind of maintain, keeping an open chest, so obviously we're able to get that oxygen consumption into you, it'll obviously be better for that, but it'll also take away the risk of any kind of lower back or upper back or upper body, niggles or kind of tightness kind of coming in after a long run specifically.
And you do feel that. I know when I get back into running, having not trained for a while, one place that actually gets me over anything is in between the shoulder blades.
Yeah.
When I go running, it's big time. So one little tip I've used and this is again because of that shoulder pain, I'm realizing I'm tensing the shoulders, I'm carrying the elbows high.
Yeah, of course,
Every time the watch beeps or every 5K, remind myself to relax the forehead, relax the eyebrows, relax the jaw, relax the shoulders, and just pass that through the body, to just get into a better position and just calm down a little bit, because you do get the longevity out of that.
Oh yeah, most definitely. And I suppose obviously if you're running and if your upper body, if you're tense in your upper body, your jaw's tense, your shoulders are tense, we're gritting our fists and all this and stuff. You're using energy to hold your body in that position as well. You know what I mean? So obviously it's going to be more draining for you in that position. And as I said, you obviously will end up in that position. There could be issues obviously with the upper back and everything like that. So trying to stay as relaxed as possible during a long run, easier said than done, obviously is key. So it just takes me back, obviously, to regards to that warm-up, was definitely focusing on the main joints you're using. So focus on your ankles, mobilize your ankles, focus on your hips, mobilize an internal and external rotation hips. Yet again, not forcing it, looking at opening up your thoracic spine, even as neck rotations, those types of movements, very, very simple, because we get very, very stiff in the neck, the traps can take over and all that kind of lovely stuff. Nice and easy, just even little rotations of the head, just up and back to different angles, just to open everything up for yourself, So what you're trying to do, basically, obviously, you're trying to prepare your body for the activity, the task at hand,
And this is only like 5 minutes or something. This is not like you have to sit down for 20, 30 minutes and
not at all.
Time doing this at all.
No, big time. Honestly, I went to the gym this morning for a short run afterwards, but my warm up before the run was really basically got down to the field. I was pretty warm up from the gym anyway. Did just a couple of little ankle mobility drills, did a bit of thoracic rotations, did the world's greatest stretch, if you're aware of that one.
Yep.
Bring the arms in, just open up the groin and all that, and away I went. Literally took me no more than 10 minutes just to literally get the joints. And I know I'm going to be working. It was a slow, zone 2 run, it was an easy run, so I didn't need to really kind of kill myself with a warm up. But just immobilize those joints before I went in and worked through them,
And when runners are finished their run, we normally go in, showered, except this lad to my right who didn't shower after his run today. Thanks for that. The one time we do a podcast beside each other. But anyway,
appreciate it.
Runners are notorious.
That's what hard work smells like.
For not stretching afterwards. In your book, 100%. Necessary, not necessary. Did you stretch today after your run?
I was stretched today after. In my book, yes, it is 100% necessary. No, I suppose there's a lot of literature and stuff out there stating that static stretching, passive stretching, etc., pros and cons to it. Yep. I suppose in my own experience, there's the pros outweigh the cons. For me, there's much more good going to come from doing a static stretch than not doing a static stretch. Okay, so you're after working, you're going for an hour run, 2 hour run, whatever the case is. You're working your muscles. During that time, the muscles are contracting the entire time. Okay, so they're contracting, obviously constricting or contracting, eccentric, loading, etc. So what you're looking to do, obviously, is just to allow them to lengthen out. It comes to what we mentioned earlier about mobilizing the joints. Know that obviously the joints should be nice and loose by this stage. You want to lengthen that tissue. You really want to get nice, good length into the tissue, like, you know. Like the main thing that like I would always focus on is with stretching. It's about being comfortable in the stretch, not being painful in this, not being in pain in the stretch. Okay. Now, what I mean by that is you might get in and your thighs might be tight. So you might do like the regular quad stretch or leg up behind you. You might do what's called a couch stretch. It's a bit more specific to your hip flexors than and your thighs. But when you're stretching, it shouldn't be a case of where you're in pain. Okay. It might be a small bit uncomfortable. Okay. But you should be able to breathe through that stretch. You shouldn't be there holding your breath, gritting your teeth, saying, Jesus Christ, when's this ever going to end? Like, you know, it might be a bit uncomfortable because obviously the muscles are fatigued and all that kind of lovely stuff. But most definitely should be in control of that stretch. Okay. Mm-hmm. If you find that it's a specific area, like, yet again, foam rolling, there's a lot of literature pro and against it. I'm a fan of foam rolling. Okay. I'm not a fan of trying to break a foam roller with my leg, which a lot of people try and do. But what I am a fan of is like it's basically a form of manual therapy. So if you've got a little bit of a niggle or a little bit of tightness in your thigh or calf or hamstrings, wherever it is, you just add a little bit of pressure on specific area. So what I'll always do with a foam roll and a joint, we'll say for the thighs, I'll foam roll from my knee to my hip, up and down once or twice, get a feel. Okay, where's tight there? Yeah, that area is a little bit tender today. Cool. What I'm going to do then is just focus on that specific area for no more than 15, 20 seconds. Put a bit of extra pressure on that specific area. Then you might go up and down once or twice. Again, find another area. But as I'm putting pressure, again, I said, I'm not trying to break the foam roller. I'm no more than a 3 or 4 or 10. I'm adding a bit of pressure, but nothing major, you know?
Yeah.
So then that can obviously help a little bit better to, obviously, you're breaking down a bit of muscle tissue, breaking up muscle adhesions and all that. Then you may be able to get into your chest a little bit deeper. So yeah, no, most definitely, I would be a big fan of stretching or static stretching directly after a stretch. And big thing I would say is when you're static stretching, and I'm as guilty as at times, people try and like rush in and not do it. And they're like, all right, I'll get it done there now in 2 minutes. And they're like, 10, 15 seconds my calves, 15 seconds my quads, hamstrings. Right, good looking, thanks.
Yeah.
Try and hold that stretch for a good minute, 45 seconds minimum, up to a minute on each side. Okay. You're really adding value to that stretch. You know, you're not just doing it for the sake of taking off a box. You know, you're actually mindfully going through what you're actually trying to achieve there, you know.
And it is one thing that people need to remember, like to avoid being on your table for an assessment of how to fix so I can keep running.
100%.
That minute, so the 5 minutes at the end for your 5 key muscles that you're after using, you're away, you're good. And again, it's all part of that. How do I train tomorrow? And that's the mentality you have to keep into it. That's the yoga mentality I've been trying to beat into Sean.
Yeah.
For a while. But it's how do you train tomorrow? And it is that being able to hold, like you said, now Sean will describe his yoga where and I've done it as well sometimes where I'm screaming at her to move into the next pose.
Yeah, you're going, geez, what's going on here? Like,
it does get easier, but it's but when we're talking about running, it's the basics. It is the very basics that you've done since you were young on a sports team or in PE. It's
100%,
there's no real complexity to what's required after you. You just have to be patient with it and give it the 45 seconds to a minute on the large group muscles that you're after working.
Most definitely. Like, and it'll pay you back down the line. You know it will. Like, it will have a payback in a positive way down the line. And like, even like I was in England last weekend, and we did a trail run. We were over there, and basically we were down Melbourne Hills. It's a lovely part of the world. We were staying in Birmingham that night, which is about an hour away. So we got back to the car. We're in the car park. So I did like a little basic quad stretch, basic calf stretch, hammies, changed clothes, just like yourself, didn't shower, went for food, jumped in the car, went up to Birmingham. Yeah. And I got to the hotel that night, I'm like, my hips are absolutely destroyed. I'm like, I'm not I did a 2.5 hour trailer and he didn't stretch them out afterwards. They're going to be stiff and tight, you know what I mean? So like, you know, like, listen, you again, so listen to your body in that regards, but like, comes with experience. Like, when you do it and you do it properly, you will see the benefit of it most definitely. Like, yeah.
So there's one side of the coin where people do very little to no stretching and on they go. Now, I know you're kind of caught in time here, so we'll try and go through these a little bit quicker.
That's all right.
There's other where people use all sorts of tools in the world. You've got your massage guns, you got your compression boots, you got your cold baths, your hot baths, your whatever, all these.
Everything. Yeah.
So many different tools in recovery. And what I'm seeing lately is there's a lot more studios that are opening up now that focus solely on recovery. And have you used a lot of massage boots or massage guns, or massage boots, sorry, compression boots?
So I've used compression boots a few times. Find them decent. I suppose like what I would do, suppose after long runs, I might have just a compression pants. Just like on them that evening, just sitting on watching TV or whatever, put them on for an hour as I'm sitting on watching TV. I can find them more or less as good as the compression boots, if I'm perfectly honest with you. I get really good benefit from them. I suppose hot and cold therapy is kind of it's a very controversial thing. With regards to the cold therapy, I like cold therapy, but I don't like cold therapy directly after training. Okay.
A lot of people that, yeah, even some of our guests who were on, Karen who was on, said try and do it before and then warm up into it.
Exactly. Yeah. So I wouldn't be a big fan of cold therapy. I wouldn't be a big fan of doing a long run, dumping straight into an ice bath directly after it. Okay. What I would be a fan of doing a long run on Sunday or Saturday, whatever day it is, doing a bit of static stretching, etc. And then on the Sunday, jumping into an ice bath. It's a fantastic feeling. Because obviously like the ice, the feeling's going to kill all the neural sensations. So any bit of DOMS you have is kind of gone, and you're going to obviously the release of endorphins and that feeling alive. For everything else that goes good jumping in an ice bath. That's really good. Massage guns is an interesting one. So pros and cons against a massage gun. Cons similar to a foam roller, people kind of use them wrong. So I suppose without getting into too much specifics here, you've different areas of bodies, different muscle groups require different things when you're doing treatments. So some things might need upbeat kind of work. Some things might need a little bit kind of slower, kind of slower releasing kind of work. Okay, with a massage gun, it's obviously very intense. It's bang, 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 bang on the muscles, whatever the case is. Particularly in around the spine, if people are jumping on a massage gun, saying, "Oh yeah, it feels jumping on my lower back," upper back not as bad with the traps, but it can just aggravate a few things. Okay. We can kind of just aggravate a few things and kind of make the issue a little bit worse if you have a bit of tightness in that area. So just be a bit cautious about using massage guns in general. What I would say about the massage guns, typically they're fine in their calves, fine in their quads, fine in their glutes, more or less. Hamstrings as well aren't terrible. Okay, but just be cautious when you're using them. Similar to what I said earlier, if you're using it and if it's making things worse, if you step away and say, I bought a massage gun, spend 150 quid in it, but I'm going to use it now after every session. And after every session, I'm like, Jesus Christ, I'm destroyed here. It's not doing any good, So I suppose you have to learn how to use it properly,
Like trying to use it as a lazy man's foam roller.
Yeah. And it does have benefits, most definitely. It does have
just
benefits.
Leave it sitting in one spot in the calf, just going there. Don't be putting any pressure into it. It's just my legs.
Yeah.
But I'm watching Netflix and I'm like, oh, that's lovely.
And I suppose it's one thing I kind of meant to touch on earlier, I suppose, is when you're getting people to do stretching or do mobility work in general, right? It's the part people least enjoy doing, right? And what most people's foam rollers are doing, they're sitting in the corner in the corner of their bedroom or in wherever it is, hidden away. So what I try and get clients to do with their foam roller, with their mats, etc., to leave it near the TV, because at least it's near the TV. You're going to be sitting and watching TV. It's in the corner of vision of your eye, so you're more inclined to go and pick up that foam roller, grab that mat, do a bit of mobility work, do a bit of stretching. And if it's in your room, you're saying, it's just too much. Fuck that, I'm not going to do that. My feet are comfy. I'm having a cup of tea here. I'm comfy. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, it's 100%. And it's definitely something, it's actually sitting here behind Sean. My roll mat foam roller and the little balls run underneath my feet are in the bit I put my feet on when I'm in the evening.
Exactly, yeah. But it's like, the side of the mind, there's not going to be much good to you if it's in your bedroom. You're not going to go and, you're not going to go and get it,
In the personal training world, I'm sure you've gotten this plenty of times. If you're told teaching a core exercise or a sit-up or stuff, they'd be like, oh, is this going to help me lose weight? Having that problem, that misconception that doing sit-ups will help you get a six-pack without doing nutrition.
Yeah.
I know this is generalization, but I get
that's all right.
It's like a female client, you give them a heavy weight, like, oh, I'm going to get big and bulky. It's like, nah, it's not.
Yeah.
In the massage world, what is those misconceptions you commonly get?
I suppose one of the big ones you get is, and it comes mainly from lads who would have grown up like maybe the J background, is that like when you go in for a massage, people think you need to be absolutely broken down and minced on the table. They think that like, I need to be in absolute agony here, so I'm getting a benefit from that, and this is not true. The there can be benefits to do like an invasive kind of a type of a treatment on certain muscle days, certain muscles or certain joints, whatever the case is, okay? But for the most part, you don't want to be absolutely running someone into the ground, because similar to running, if you absolutely smash that person into the table and they're absolutely in bits, they're probably going to be in bits for 24, 48, 72 hours. So it's not going to do much good to them long term, you know? So that's the number one thing I would say, is that like at certain times in certain areas, you need to kind of dig in a little bit, need to get stuck in a small bit, but it doesn't need to be all about being an absolute pain, you know? That's the main kind of thing I suppose I'd see. Something and anything else really, not really, I suppose off the top of my head, really that will kind of focus on that. Like I suppose like.
Oh, but that is, only one thing that struck me, because if I come out of a massage and I call it a wishy-washy massage and I'm like, I didn't feel a thing.
Yeah.
I want just like, whoa, they kicked the shit out of me. And I'm
yeah.
Do your work. It makes me better. Do your worst. You do kind of feel that way. Like, yeah, they say, "Oh, pain's been 4 or 5. Let me know. Move on." And it could be a 7 or 8. It's like, "How are you?" Like,
yeah, good. Yeah. I can't breathe in the room, but I'm fine.
Get back running. I'm good with it. But like you said, that's not always the best thing for you.
It's not always the best thing, and I suppose, and it comes down to the individual in front of you and what they're capable of. And I suppose it's about, like, from my point of view, listening to that person's body responding to me at the time and saying, okay, they're able for a little bit more pressure, they're able for a little bit more of an invasive treatment. This person know they're in chronic pain, I'll have to lay off, you know? So like if someone's in chronic pain, there's no point in me going in absolutely aggravating everything and making things a lot worse. So we're in pain, you're tired, you're cranky, or you're sore anyway. You don't need me digging in there with my thumb or my fist and getting right stuck into it, like, you know. So it's not going to do you any good long term, you know.
And as you've alluded to already, everybody is different. It's the same It's the same with training, and of course, it's the same with coming to the likes of yourself. What worked for me might necessarily work for the next person.
100%, yeah.
Case by case basis. But I suppose if people are looking to get in touch with you, I know you're one of our new Corkians who come on.
Yeah, we're taking over.
But how can people find out a little bit more about you and your clinics, and where can they find you essentially? So
basically, I'm based in Cork City. I'm based in Ballyvillan, which is the north side of Cork City, in Rock Fitness. ROC Fitness is where I work out of. So I'm doing personal training and obviously the normal therapy in there. My own Instagram is Barrett Sports Therapy. So you can find me on that. That's basically where I promote my stuff. Obviously my work is more or less on that. I have just a personal Facebook page, but I don't really use it that much for promoting anything along those lines. But yeah.
Well, look, it's been absolutely. We're aware we've eaten into a lot of your busy schedule today.
That's all right. That's grand. That's all right.
Grateful to have you on the podcast. Those who are looking to reach out to you more, we'll put that into the show notes that you'll be able to read with the episode itself, and we'll link it in to Ronan himself. Ronan, we can't thank you enough for the insights. I've got some insights. I have to stop beating myself up with
That's all right.
Yeah. And again, even though I've been doing this a few years, remind myself, because today I came in from the run and I didn't stretch, and I've been reminded that it's important. I'm going to be on a flight later on this evening. I'll probably get cramped and everything else.
Yeah, so, all that good stuff. Yeah.
The suffering, but I can't thank you enough from me and Sean. It's been absolutely a great insight. I hope everyone gets some insights from it. And remember just the basic principles. Through all the guests we got on, there's a common theme of go easy on yourself, listen to the body, and make sure to look after it in your case. Or don't, if we're really trying to promote your business.
Yeah.
Go to Ronan, he'll fix it. But thanks so much for your time. Thanks for your best of luck. Best of luck with the trail running. Best of luck with the marathon, the Ironman. I'll be keeping an eye on me. See how things go. See how we go. But that's it for us. Unless you have anything else to add, Ronan. No, all good, lads. Appreciate it. Thank you so much for having me on. Daddy Rowan, thank you very much, guys. Thank you very much for this week's episode of the Any Given Monday podcast. That's it from myself, Eric, and Ronan. Take care. Bye.